Afternoon. We're just kind of waiting for everybody to get connected this afternoon. I'm Howard Halderman. I'm with the Halderman Real Estate Services and Halderman Farm Management Companies, primarily based in Indiana and the Eastern Corn Belt, but also have a presence down in the beautiful state of Georgia. So while everybody's getting connected, we'll hold on here for a second and get rolling this afternoon. We will, just as a couple of housekeeping notes, I'm going to have Nolan Sampson, who's our business development director. He's going to put everyone on mute so that we don't have any random dogs barking in the background, which is just one of those signs of COVID and Zoom these days. But that way it won't disturb the rest of the presentation. I'd like to welcome everybody today on behalf of Need More Properties based in Albany, Georgia, as well as Halderman Real Estate Services. We're excited to present a couple of great topics this afternoon. As I said earlier, I'm Howard Halderman, president of the Halderman Companies. I am licensed in Georgia, as is Chris Peacock. And Chris is on your screen today. Chris is our representative for the Georgia area with the Halderman Companies, and also working alongside him is his daughter, Lauren Peacock. And they provide farm management and real estate brokerage services in the state of Georgia for the Halderman Companies at this point in time. Chris works extensively in Southwest Georgia with Bob Dutton at Need More Properties. They are based in Albany. And together, the two companies work together to provide brokerage sales services as well as farmland acquisition services. So whether you want to sell a farm, you want to buy a farm, we provide the ability to do either one. In addition, we do offer property management services, and the Halderman Companies do manage some properties in Georgia as well as northern Florida. So if you have those needs, basically, if you were kind of wondering, how do I buy a farm in southwestern Georgia? And then how do I make that a productive asset for me and hit the desired return that I want to accomplish? That is something that Chris and Bob can help you look at various properties, analyze them, come up with a return, and then help you buy those. And once you've acquired them, we can handle the management of those properties long-term for you. So before I turn it over to Bob, I'm going to make a couple of comments on the general farm economy. Those of you that watch commodities on a regular basis probably know that corn and soybean prices, as well as wheat and other commodities, pigs, beef cattle, have done extremely well. In fact, I think I read an article just yesterday that the two commodities in agriculture that haven't gone up a lot in value over the last 6 to 8 months would be eggs and rice. And I'm not sure, I know Georgia is the home to a lot of broiler production, but not necessarily egg production. And we have a lot of egg production in the state of Indiana. But those are the two commodities that haven't seen a pretty big upswing. And as a result of that improvement in corn price, soybean price, peanut prices, those sorts of commodities really driving a renewed interest in the agricultural space and higher land values. In addition, you have very low interest rates. Interest rates, even still today, are at a very low level and as low as they've been for many, many years. So when you put those things together, better incomes combined with low interest rates, we are seeing farmland values escalate today, honestly, and go up in value. And so it's driving a lot of interest in farmland, and it can create a great opportunity for people to make an investment into agriculture. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Bob Dutton. Bob, I would ask for you to introduce your team. Now, my Zoom says that you're trying to connect. I guess the other alternative would be to have Hank make those introductions as well. But Bob, if you are able to, go ahead and unmute and introduce the Need More Properties team joining us today.
If you can see me or not, we're not going to take any time for that. We'd like to spend our time listening to our two speakers, Gary Black and Ty Godfrey.
Perfect. So Bob, what we're going to do, if anybody has questions throughout Gary's presentation or Ty's presentation this afternoon, I would encourage you to chat those in. You can use the chat feature in the bottom bar of your Zoom window and just send those via chat. And then at the end of Gary's presentation, I will ask questions of him. And that way he doesn't have to stick around if he's got other things he's got to do. And then once Ty is done, we'll ask those questions that you have of Mr. Godfrey. So with that, I think Hank Jester wanted to do the introductions of Commissioner Black. So I'll turn it over to Hank to do those introductions this afternoon. Hank, take it away.
Thank y'all for this afternoon. I'm not sure if Gary, I don't know whether he's having trouble or not, but I know Ty is on. So Chris,
Gary's
Howard,
I'm here.
Gary's.
I'm here, Hank.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you, sir. Well, let me take a quick minute and let me introduce a good friend. I got a bio on him. I didn't realize he did all these things, but Gary's in his third term serving as our Commissioner of Agriculture in Georgia, and we are tickled to have him. I have folks in other states tell me all the time that you need to be glad who you have for your Commissioner of Agriculture. He's a graduate of the University of Georgia College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences, past president of the Alumni Society, serves on the advisory committee of the USDA and Environmental Protection Agency and the Export-Import Bank of the United States. He is a tireless advocate of agriculture, and he one of the big things that he's done in Georgia that he's really proud of is the Georgia Grown Collaborative approach, which is unparalleled tool that helps Georgians start businesses. Gary is also a Leadership Georgia Patillo Award recipient and the 2017 Georgia Trend Magazine Georgian of the Year. And if you know Gary like I know him, the last thing I want to say is he's a member of the Maysville Baptist Church, where he's a very active member, and I think still a Sunday school teacher. Gary, we'll turn it over to you.
I need to unmute. Thank you, Hank. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to visit with you a little bit today. And welcome to the meeting. I hope y'all have had a good run thus far. And thanks for letting me share a little bit of time with you today. Hank, Liddy and I are on the road. We had it's the best intentions, you know how that goes. We ran into a project in Milledgeville that ran, so I didn't get as stable as I intended to be, but it's still the same thing. I'm ready and just appreciate the opportunity to visit with y'all. Y'all about important work. I've enjoyed learning a little bit about your group and everything. And of course, it might be like I might be like a lot of you. If Hank Jester asks you to do something or tells you to do something, the answer is the same thing. It's yes. So, but I appreciate. It's an interesting thing we all get to do together in this thing called agriculture, and I sure appreciate Hank's friendship, and I'm sure many others of you on the meeting today. For those of you that are not familiar with ag in Georgia, there are a couple of other tidbits. There are a couple of things that I always kind of like to start these discussions with, because it kind of gets to the core of the importance of ag in Georgia, and why, as long as I get to do this job, why we have the approach that we have. There may be some other Georgians that are on here that I don't know if you know this little deal. It's something I discovered over the course of my really goes back to 1996 as we were preparing for the Centennial Olympics Games. That's kind of how long this story goes. But yeah, I'm fascinated by how many people, if you ask them, do you know what your name means? You know, culturally, that's really important for a lot of people. And maybe many of you actually know, you know, where did you get your name and what does it mean? And of course, that's obvious with all of us. It's our parents gave us the name. But I find even today, you know, a lot of people don't even know what their name means. But you turn that over to the state of Georgia and say, okay, where did we get our name? Now, you can get a pretty good response on that, figuring out that we got it from King George. And of course, during the founding of the colonies. And that's right. sometimes you can kind of catch people to say which King George was it, because it was not the third, it was his dad, the second. And that's who we were, George, the feminine form of George. That's where we received our name. But it's a really interesting name, though, to ask people the question then, and particularly even in a Georgia Civic Club, to say, okay, do you know what it means? And that's kind of the answer I usually get. And those kind of saying, wow, no, I have no earthly idea. Georgia, the feminine form of George, after King George II, but it actually means, in the Greek, it means a farmer. George means a farmer. Georgia would then mean a female farmer. God makes no mistakes. Sure, we were named after King George, but I think it's inherent in our very being that a farmer is our name. That's what we do. Agriculture in Georgia is not what we do until we can find something else better to do. It's not what we do because we can't do anything else. The agriculture strengths of our state, the heritage and the future is all intrinsically built, I believe, in the very meaning of our name. Now, is that Gary's story and he's sticking to it? Yeah. But I believe it. I believe it's just truth, and I believe that's what God intended us to do, and it's what we must do. You can look back also in the history of Georgia, and Hank, I don't know if we've ever been around in this, and you've heard me say this before, but I love to get a bunch of lawyers talking about the official seal of the state of Georgia, and every state that's represented here. They're, those things, sometimes those crests or those seals are on our flags. They're certainly, on the governor's lapel or on the dais when someone's speaking. Georgia is a very interesting state in that we're one of the few states that has a double-sided seal. The seal is mentioned in 3 paragraphs of the official code of Georgia. Code of Georgia says, first of all, in paragraph 1 of Title 51, in one of those sections, it just says, "There shall be a seal." Now, that's real profound. Well, thanks very much. So what's the seal made up of? Well, paragraph 2 says, on the seal on the device there should be a ship at wharf receiving hogsheads, or old word for containers. Receiving hogsheads of tobacco and cotton, emblematic of our state's exports. And then it says there should be a smaller vessel on an inland waterway receiving the same, and it's emblematic of our internal trade. And then it says that the device shall contain an emblem of a man in the act of plowing, a small flock of sheep on a flourishing hill, and then it shall have inscribed thereon the motto, agriculture and commerce. And then my favorite words, I haven't won this argument yet. I discovered this about 12 years ago, and I'm going to keep on making the argument. But the 3rd paragraph of the law says the device on the other side has what you normally see now on the Georgia state flag. You see it with the governor. There are 3 pillars. It says the words wisdom, justice, and moderation, and that's what most Georgians would recognize as the seal of the state of Georgia. But here's what's agriculture and commerce comes first in the law, and I've been arguing now for 12 years unsuccessfully, but I'm going to keep it up. The flag, the seal you see on the flag of the state of Georgia is actually the back of the seal. The law says the device on the other side, and that's the other side, and we're first. We're still first. We've taken that seal. You'll find it almost everything we do at the department now. And so if nothing else, over the course of history, we've pulled it out of the mothballs, and now some Georgians actually participate a little bit in some civics, understanding where the state comes from. I say all that to just emphasize this $75 billion economic engine that we call agriculture in Georgia it's what we do intentionally. It's what we must do. It's in our being. It's in our blood. It's in our name. And it's certainly in the seal of the official things that we do. So you may know that just again another couple of just quick backgrounds before we get to to update and outlook. We're first in the nation in peanut. We would normally be first in the nation in pecan, but for Hurricane Michael that affected Hank and a bunch of our other friends, we lost 28,000 acres of pecan trees 2 years ago. Some of that's being restored. We'll get back into a leadership position in that probably pretty quickly. But no, some people don't know we're no one forest product state in the nation, and that kind of surprises some people. But we're number 2 in cotton. We're in top 5 in most fresh fruits and vegetables. I don't know if anybody's from California is on y'all's group. All due respect to them and our competitive nature of having fun in ag competitions. No, we're not the largest producer of peaches. We are the peach state. By gum, we are, because that's what the law says. I think we're third in peach production in the country, and California may produce 20%. They do produce 20 times more peaches than the state of Georgia, but I will argue today and argue forevermore that ours are 20 times better. So, and I get paid to say that. So that's kind of part of my role. We're number 1 poultry producing state in the nation. Of course, that's buoyed, with a good egg industry, but by far, when you put the power of our broiler industry in with that, it makes us number 1 in total poultry production. And I don't see that that's still strengthening, and even with a growing population, we're approaching 11 million people. There are more people that live here than ever before. There are more people moving into places where they enjoy being in the country. They love farmers and not too sure about farming. And so that's some of the challenges we're facing as we grow, but still preeminent in so many of these different agricultural disciplines. We look quickly too about our department. We're the oldest state department of agriculture in America. We go back to 1874. I'm the 16th person to actually have this job. It's a constitutional office, therefore it's elected, and which everybody ought to run for office once. I would encourage all of you to pay your debt to society and run for office sometime. But in our state, I think there are 12 of us nationwide that are actually elected, and that does make it interesting. But it also gives some liberty to do some things. Let's talk about a little bit of update where this crop is here and what's going on. Talking about peach just a second ago. We're a little bit on the bubble the next day or two. I think we're going to be fine in middle Georgia. North Georgia fruit crops have probably taken a 50% hit. We're been real concerned about that, but that comes and goes every year. There's a lot of dust flying around Hank Jester's corner of this earth right now. There's been a lot of diesel fuel burned the last 2 weeks. From a standpoint of corn's in, there's a lot of corn knee high down here now. All the sweet corn's in. All of our fresh vegetables are. I know Hank, State Representative Sam Watson's cutting cabbage and yellow squash today. So that's that's coming along nicely. I think everybody's just kind of so. We're pretty wet in the spring. It cut down on some of our fumigant, so there's probably a little dirtier crop than some of these guys are accustomed to seeing, just simply because of weed pressure. But I don't know if some of you others in Georgia are seeing that, but that's what I'm hearing. Cotton and peanut will be wide open. Uh, I, I heard a farmer told me last night in Moultrie, he was fortunate he contracted 1,000 bales at 89 cents. Uh, uh, that's a pretty good lick, given where we've been the last 2 or 3 years. As all of you know, input costs are up, fertilizers off the chart, and just crimping whatever gains we can find in the marketplace. It's what the market giveth, the input seller taketh away. So whether that margin improves, I mean, it's still reasonably positive. And I don't hear quite the doldrums that we've heard the last couple of years. Timber's kind of a tough deal right now because I mean, y'all know what retail wood prices are just out of the roof, but then the stumpage is still as cheap as dirt, and so, but actually, dirt's price of dirt's going up now too. But uh, uh, our timber producers really, we're in a lock situation here. We got Interfor's got I believe 9 sawmills in Georgia, and that's good for those communities, but um, there's concern with the landowner out there for sure, just on that basic wood price. It's maybe one of the more sour parts of ag and forestry, and on the land today. I'm we think there's some pretty good strength in peanut and cotton still. We'll see. Uh, I was reading a Wells Fargo article this morning talking about, will the COVID experience keep the demand for fresh fruits and vegetables up? Because last year during COVID, we were all freaking out because we lost half the market at one time. Just in a fell swoop, we lost 50% of the dairy market, 50% of the vegetable market, because there was nowhere for that product to go. We responded pretty aggressively. I'm going to get to that in just a second. But will does that play out? Because fresh fruits and vegetables, farm markets, those kind of things, last year just had the best year they've ever seen. I mean, they wouldn't want anybody to sick. They wouldn't want to. They wouldn't advocate us continuing to be concerned about disease. None of us would, but they would tell you that the impact COVID had on the market for them was actually positive. I mean, to record levels. Sweet corn started out in the 20s, and 2 or 3 days. Some that I'm aware of. Some people that may have different information, but some I'm aware of, even up to July 4th. Sweet corn in Georgia was at $40 a box, which is never has it ever been there. So we'll just see. I tend to think just going around Atlanta and being with different groups, other parts of our constituency, I do believe the positive thing that's come out of COVID is there's a little better appreciation for where agriculture and food producers and the delivery system, the infrastructure, where it fits into the whole deal with national defense or critical infrastructure under Homeland Security. I think there's a growing commitment to that, and I'm still pretty positive that some of those trends are going to continue this year. There's another realm of thinking too that, of course, you're still going to have a positive impact of the marketplace, but some people have been eating at home so long that when things are relaxed in other states, they get back to they may never eat at home again for 90 days because they haven't been to a restaurant so long. So, all that balances out because that demand seems coming back in food service. I don't know if some of y'all are seeing the same things, but that's what I'm reading and sensing. I want to talk with, let me hit three more points real quick, and then love to tackle any questions y'all have. First point's maybe some of the emerging things that we're seeing. And then I really wanted to wrap up on, uh, 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 wrap up quickly on some of our COVID response. And then last exclamation point is, kind of where we are post Hurricane Michael and what's happened, because Mr. Jester is a mighty big part of that. And I will always thank him. We're seeing citrus continue to grow here. Very interesting. We've got some varieties that we're just kind of, some cultivars have been developed out of the UGA Tifton. There was some emeritus professor Wayne Hanna, who actually spent a lifetime in turf grass, but just has a fascination with citrus, and has done some really good work. That's paying off in some things. We've even got some groups looking at pomegranates. There's some work that's been done, some improvements been making. It's going to be interesting to see where that goes. But these non-traditional, at least non-traditional in our viewpoint, we're seeing a level of excitement that keeps you on the cutting edge of something new, and it can kind of keep people fired up. It's interesting to see if you can develop some research around that, develop some the regulatory things. We had to get some, I think 24 seeds. I've got to work with our friends in Florida last year on getting a 24C, some fungicides, I believe, that they're really going to help the pomegranate folks. And when I say that, they could probably meet in the phone booth, but you have to do those basic things first. And when you do that, then the other good things happen down the road. That's, I think many of you've seen that in your career. It's going to be interesting to see where the hemp thing, Hank, I just did a Channel 2. That's the ABC affiliate in Atlanta. That's the lead dog TV station in Atlanta. They're finally getting a handle around trying to do some stories about the hemp industry and wanting some background. I think we fed them pretty good just about an hour ago, but there's a lot of product out there. It's just like anything new that you introduce, you got issues with. I don't know anybody's making any loans on that. We've still got pesticide issues in finding some products that will actually work. And then how you going to, there's so many different cultivars and varieties of these products, and which one will hit, 0.3 THC and below. That's an enormous set of obstacles still. I don't have on the tip of my tongue how much of our product was hot last year. I'm thinking about a third of it. And so we had just over 1,000, I think 1,300 acres last year, but there's warehouses full and processors we have enough that we could, I had one in my office first of the year. It was a great, CBD oil product, and it looks good. There's a great story behind it. And they said they had enough product after their first year to make 6 million of those bottles. Now, even I can do the math. 6 million times 89. That's a lot of money. But I could have made better grades at University of Georgia if I'd have studied harder too. So I don't know. We'll see. And I don't know what some of you have thoughts about that, but with all the uses of the product, whether it's bioremediation or fiber, future electric car automobile bodies, adding the stuff to asphalt or putting the fiber and cement blocks. I mean, y'all probably all heard those presentations, and that's awesome. But it also comes back to at what price, and when you substitute, then basic economics will tell you that. Then who are you displacing at what price? And that's just fundamentals. And so that was interesting, Hank. That was an interesting discussion with Channel 2 a while ago, because try to connect some of those dots to them. But I hope, we have some pretty committed people. We still don't have really any opinion from FDA. We need federal guidance, because is it a food? Is it a food additive? What is it? Is it a pharmaceutical? And there's just not adequate guidance from the federal government, in my view, that's going to help this market yet. And until you get some certainty there, I'm just not sure. They did come to us when the legislature decided to go down the route of medical cannabis about 18 months ago. I met with a House member and a Senate member, both I count as good friends, and they came to our into our little area and said, "We're going to do this bill." They're both Republicans. I said, "That's great, guys. Well, let me tell you, I've studied this on the medical side." And I said, "Industrial hemp, I get that. And to me, you spell that FARM. I said, medical cannabis, I believe you spell that PHARM, and I don't know anything about that." And so we've been successful in keeping our agency out of the PHARM and just sticking to the industrial side of this. And as long as I do this job and can count votes across the street at the Capitol, we might be able to keep it that way. I don't know anything about the other thing. Let me wrap up. Those are a couple of those emerging things that it's very interesting, and I still think there's some opportunity out there. Let me wrap up with this. We got hit with when I don't know if some of y'all, you probably heard him say, but it was somewhere between Category 4 and Category 5 when Hurricane Michael came across counties that Hank Jester calls home. Just a bizarre thing. Our extension estimates start with $2.5 billion in losses. I remember briefing the vice president, and just out of the blue, I mean, I said, Mr. Vice President, these are generational losses. And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, there's just this is not, a cotton crop is, we'll come back next year if we can borrow enough money. But when you lose a 60-year-old pecan tree, you're talking about 4 generations loss." And that was an interesting thing too, talking about dealing with the media. Hank, lady from the Weather Channel, we were standing out in Eric Cohen's place, and of course there are 80-year-old pecan trees everywhere, laying on the side. And the lady asked me, the reporter said, "Well, Commissioner, can you tell me, we're in a pecan orchard of 80-year-old trees blown over. How long is it going to take for it to return?" I said, "Probably about 80 years." And I don't think that made it to the final cut, but it's just interesting to try to get this across to people, what happened. Federal government said, and our congressional delegation said, "Look, the aid's going to come, but what about doing it in a block grant?" That's never been done before. We said, "Sure." Our fruit and vegetable and other folks cotton's covered by insurance, but fruit and vegetable, timber, uh, pecan, dairy, livestock, beef, poultry, just had never had hurricane assistance before. Uh, Hank, one of the first people that called, we put together somewhat of a think tank, if you could call what we do thinking. We met 4 or 5 times, and we were told to have a plan in the U.S. Department of Agriculture on June the 28th, 2019. We came up with some pretty innovative notions of how to quantify and how to pay and the procedures. It was all from scratch. And Hank was a huge part of that. We were the only state to turn ours in on time. And then we went from June 28th, a full year before we could ever get the swamp to move. So, and that's another one of those stories that anybody doesn't think there was a swamp. There's always been a swamp. There's still a swamp, but unfortunately, our producers hit the swamp, and it really slowed us down. But in essence, what happened, we wound up, we were appropriated $347 million, and we didn't think it was enough. But we went to our growers and a very innovative sign up. We did the work in house. But in 15 weeks, we were able to put $176 million on the street. And those folks have been paid. Some very innovative formulas. And in fact, USDA kept saying, once they kind of came over to our side, they said, wow, I understand there's a lot of people watching, because if y'all hit a home run, this is going to change the way some of our programs work. And I think it has. I talked to a colleague in Alabama yesterday. Alabama hadn't written a check yet. And they've been under the same anyway. So it's just it was a tough deal, but we did get people helped. It was a very interesting process. And now, as I said, 176, let me see, put $171 million on the street. And now we had signed an agreement that we're going to be lock the doors except for follow-up and audit. And we signed the agreement way back when I put my signature on a $347 million contract. That'll make you think. And now we also said we've been talking a lot. We've been talking big. You got to put up and shut up. So, but our team just did a fantastic job. Bryce Trotter, young man on my staff, we threw him into the deep water, and he became an Olympic swimmer. And but our little advisory group stayed together. But now, in the true performance of the federal government, I know it's not going to shock all as I'll wrap up. We signed that agreement under full agreement that by January 31st, 2021, we had to return every dime that we haven't spent, and you had to give a full accounting for it. We got all those checks have been written. We finished our books. We closed our books. I have $176 million sitting in a non-interest bearing account right now on April the 21st, and I cannot get the federal government to tell me how to send it back. And why are we shocked? We get frustrated sometimes. So, well, I'm still working on that because I want it gone. It needs to be out. We'll have a couple of years of follow up on this, but y'all's colleague and host today was a big part of that. I'll always be grateful to him for it. So, Hank, I probably needs to be. That's probably more than you bargained for. So, I'd love to take some questions if anybody has any, if that's appropriate.
Commissioner, that is an outstanding, very well said on all points. One of the points you made and I know up here in Indiana, it's been a major emphasis for Indiana Farm Bureau, is about question about real estate taxes. And you made a comment about government in moderation. And so the question is, what can be done about landowners continuing to bear the burden of financing local governments with increased taxes? And sometimes it can go from $0 to $50 per acre and more in some instances. So I just wondered if you have any thoughts on that, or where the state of Georgia is headed on local real estate taxes.
However, we're very fortunate. Back in my lobbying days, I was glad to be on the team. It goes back to initial ballot questions in the early '90s, and I think implementation in 1993. But we have a program in Georgia that's called Conservation Use Valuation Assessment. It's called CUVA, CUVA. So CUVA, if you have any lawyers looking at it, it's entitled 48 of Georgia law. That's the revenue section. But CUVA allows for, I'm sure Hank's land's in it. I know my farm it's a 10-year covenant. So you enter a 10-year covenant, and then the ad valorem taxes are based on the agricultural productivity of the land and that alone. It does allow for growth in that digest. If I recall correctly, it is still allows for 3% per year, but a maximum of 15% of the life of the covenant. And so you're not boxing the counties in, but you are limiting that growth, and you're just allowing them, and it's taxed upon its agricultural productivity as opposed to its highest best use. Now, that was a ballot question in Georgia. It had to go to the voters, and it was passed. Son of a gun, I don't know if we can pass that today or not. I think you could, you'd have to couch it in the farmland preservation mindset so that you kind of look through that lens. But that's the tool that we use, and I think it's served Georgia well. I mean, my property's been through two. We maybe on my third covenant. Now there's also some stiff penalties in there, so that if you actually decide to develop that property, then there's X amount a year and double the taxes, and there's some stiff penalties to make you keep it in the covenant. But it's that's been very good for Georgia, and something perhaps somebody on the call might want to care to look at.
Great thought. Another question. Now, you mentioned pecans, and obviously that's a big crop in the state of Georgia. What about getting more exports to China? Are those coming back up with the phase 1 of the trade agreement, or how are exports on pecans going?
Bouncing back just a little bit, Howard, and you're playing right into. You said pecan. Do y'all realize how many ways there are to say this?
Well, there's pecans.
There's pecan. All right, I'm going to give, for the purpose of your conference and your conference alone, there'll be no extra charge for this, but I'm going to give you a definitively and authoritatively from our office. I'm going to settle this once and forever.
All right.
Do you know the difference
between which?
Pecans and pecans.
I do not.
They are pecans when they are more than $3 a pound. If they are less than $3 a pound, they are pecans. Our problem is we've been selling way too many pecans lately. We got to get back to selling pecans. I'm thankful we're headed there. We've been working on a new platform in Taiwan. We've been there. We've established a Georgia grown footing there that is we feel very positive about. I just nailed down a luncheon May the 4th with the Consul General of Atlanta for India. I've got a good friend who is the vice chairman of the Indian International Chamber of Commerce. and the Consul General in Atlanta, we know we're familiar with each other, but she's coming in. We got to get back to China, and we're seeing that move, and that's going to positively impact price. But we also just got to diversify those markets, because we put too many of our we put too many of them. So I say this right. We put a lot of pecans in one basket, and they turned out to be pecans. When we hit these trade issues with China, because about 4 years ago, 4 in 10 of our 40% of our product was going to China. We've done one other thing, Howard, on that. Went to AMS. We were sitting around dinner in Taiwan, and we started thinking, what could we do with grades? Because most grades, the USDA grade, the largest grade is a mammoth. We've all seen mammoth halves. We've seen them advertise that. I called Bruce Summers at AMS. I said, Bruce, you've got yours, but if I have something that is bigger, can I do it? And AMS recognized it. And we had no impediments there. So we now have a Georgia Grand, because mammoth halves they go up to 225 a pound, 225 nuts, up to that size. Some of our varieties will be in the range of 150.
Wow.
And so that's a much bigger half, that we were sacrificing quality and potential by not having any way to differentiate it. So we now have that. We think that's going to play in our benefit as well. And that's already, we've already secured that, and pecan growers are now establishing that grade in the marketplace.
Excellent. One last question, Commissioner. What can be done to remove some of the restrictions on drilling wells or pumping water from streams or ponds? And we're thinking about irrigation here. And, the value of water is huge when you go west of the Mississippi River. Granted, Georgia gets a lot of rainfall, but sometimes it doesn't come exactly when we want it. And so really, what are there some restrictions with drilling wells and pumping water? And are there ways to get around, not to get around it, but necessarily navigate it appropriately?
Howard, I have a little fun. I have a little fun with you. I would like to go on the record and say that I am not trying to get around anything. No.
I get it.
Yeah. Here's the first thing for those of us here in Georgia, and know, I don't know your roster. I don't know if we've got some friends from Florida on there, and they are friends. My friends from Florida, particularly University of Florida, they're friends at least 364 days a year. It's a pretty important Saturday on Friday that I ain't never going to be for them, but in October, pretty important Saturday in October. But the decision, I believe the decision of the Supreme Court, and how many Supreme Court decisions we see come down 9-0. Georgia had an enormous victory several weeks back. We think that's because the conservation steps that we've taken, and we think it's also because I just don't. We've been good stewards of the resource, and don't believe some of the accusations of the past. So obviously, the court didn't agree with that. What does that do? To ease our moratorium, particularly in the Flint Basin. I don't know that we're just going to spike the football and say, well, the game's over, and just go back to. We're still going to have we have a regulated riparian right, as opposed to, Eastern water law. That's what we have. Western water law is what called prior appropriation. And so we're not going to move toward an appropriated amount. I think that's a victory. I think it'll be interesting to see if I would love for us from a producer standpoint to really take a look at, even though this is a victory, uh, we need, some of you may know what I'm going to talk about. You may have it in your states, but in South Georgia, sometimes we call it a South Georgia car wash. And that's an end gun shooting over the road or into the woods
Right.
indiscriminately. And just the more adoption of technology and end gun shutoffs and soil moisture monitors, those kind of things, I think the more that we take those steps, then that probably frees up the resource, to have more capacity.
Certainly.
I think those are going to be some important steps for people to take. Hank knows we've still got some 30-year-old systems over there with overhead sprinklers. They, they, by gum, it's mine, and by gum, that's my land, and by gum, it's paid for, and I get that. But I also know that by gum, if we're going to do it in the future, we're going to have to demonstrate conservation a little more wisely than we have in the past. That's my opinion, and I'd still love to see us take advantage of every NRCS program, our soil and water conservation districts, those kind of things, to make sure we, be we all believe and advocate that we are the stewards of the environment. And I just think we've stepped up our game, but we've got to continue to do so.
Very well said. We're all about sustainability, and that's really what you're talking about, whether it be a soil resource or a water resource. And certainly the technology exists out there. You can have drops, you can, obviously monitor how much and do it in a much more specific way. So, hey, Commissioner, we thank you for your comments today and really appreciate all the work that you do for the citizens of Georgia, and really encourage your work to continue, and love to support you. So
thanks, appreciate
you mentioned the NRCS. We're going to transition over to Ty Godfrey, and I'm going to have Mr. Jester introduce him. Thanks again, Commissioner.
Thank you. Thanks, Hank.
Yes, sir. If you're in Southwest Georgia, Ty Godfrey is a name that you know when it comes to agriculture. And if you're a farmer, and he's been a friend to the farmer in Southwest Georgia for over 35 years. Doesn't seem like it's been that long, but he's been with USDA for over 35 years, and he currently serves as a district director covering all of Southwest Georgia. I know I make use of Ty probably on a weekly, if not a daily basis, for questions dealing with the farmers that I deal with. So Ty, we'll turn it over to you to update us on some of the USDA programs that are out there for 2021 CFAP and such. Thank you, Ty.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. And a couple of things that we'll start off with. We're winding up next week the Quality Loss Assistance Program. Information has come in, and hopefully we'll complete our reviews the first 2 weeks of May, and those payments will be issued shortly thereafter. We had a setback. There was a change in policy on cotton and peanuts about 3 weeks ago, and it was not in favor of the producers in Southwest Georgia or the state of Georgia. So we've had to go back and basically redo all the applications that we had filed on cotton and peanuts. Corn was okay, soybeans and the like was okay on that. They did make a ruling in this particular program. A lot of the crops, the specialty crops, pecans, produce, and blueberries, they were not eligible for this program. So that's been a setback to some of the growers in the state of Georgia. Another program that we completed the last week, they call it top-up payments on the coronavirus assistance program. Those came out a couple of weeks ago. Most of them have been issued. The ones that we've had some issues with as far as some eligibility issues, those are being wrapped up, and all of those payments should be out this week and next week. A lot of the conversation was concerning grain. USDA, FSA, we have a farm store facility loan program with the closing of the ethanol plant in Camilla. That was a major market for a lot of the corn in Southwest Georgia, and we've seen a lot of increase in interest in the farm store facility loan program. It's a great program. It's low interest rates. The terms are good. Producer has a 15% down payment, and we're able to finance the grain facility, not only the storage facility, but also dryers, handling equipment. We also have in this program hay barns, as well as cold storage for some of the produce. We actually have a couple of farm store facility loans on produce in Lowndes County. And so I'm sitting here with the other 4 district directors in the state. So any of the questions that may come up statewide, we'll have somebody here to answer that question. But some of the ongoing programs that we have right now, the Conservation Reserve Program, the general sign up is still ongoing. They have not announced a deadline for that particular program. We also have a continual sign up for certain practices, mainly in Southwest Georgia. That's our longleaf trees, dealing with practice CP36, and our grassland program has not been announced. I was talking to the district directors in North Georgia. There's a lot of interest in this program. We've cleared up a lot of the concerns growers may have concerning the grassland program as far as grazing and cutting hay. So we expect a big increase in that particular program. A couple of other things dealing with the CPAP program, or the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. Tobacco got approved yesterday, so we'll have those payments going out shortly. But they have not issued approved us or authorized us to process the contract growers, mainly the poultry growers under this particular program. It is still on hold, and we have not gotten any word on that particular item when we'll be able to process those applications. With that, I know our time is running short. Is there any questions that y'all would like for FSA to address?
Hey, Ty, we did have a question come in. Says, understand there was very little cost share available for the just closed out, quote, pop-up program for prepping and planting either loblolly or / pine. Can you elaborate on that?
Repeat the question, please.
So the question is, there was evidently little cost share for the pop-up program for prepping and planting the loblolly or / pine. Is that a program
that's not an FSA program.
Okay.
Programs that we're, yes, our cost share is in line with what the actual vendors in the area charge, and we use that as a standard rate across the state. So all of our cost share practices are vendor driven as far as what a customer would be charged to have that service provided.
Great.
That particular program is not up under the FSA umbrella.
And question is, can the requirement for putting land in CRP be changed from the requirement for cultivation of that?
The time frame on the Conservation Reserve Program is set by statute. That's in the law. So the current provisions of crop year 2012 through 2017 is in the law. So that cannot be changed.
That cannot be changed. Okay, thank you. Bob Dutton, did you have any questions for Ty today? Is he unmuted? Bob, you'd have to unmute yourself if you have any. Ty, another question. Are there many young farmers taking advantage of the program for lending money to help those young farmers get started? The FSA Young Farmer Loan Program.
Good question. We were in a meeting this morning. The state of Georgia has a strategic plan implemented to assist beginning farmers. Those loans are available. We also have mentoring to assistance to help these young farmers in whatever avenue or enterprise they choose to pursue in ag. So yes, they're beginning to take advantage of these. Due to the virus, we're limited on our outreach activities, but we're skating skating around the curve to contact as many of these through young farmer groups, 4-H, and the ag community to get this information out there.
Great. Another question, Ty, what about CRP change for harvesting straw within the contract period, i.e. being allowed to harvest CRP straw? This is currently not allowed, is that correct?
That is correct. And again, that is in statute. That is in the law that particular activity is prohibited. And so until that law is changed, that is one of the prohibitions in the conservation program.
Do you
Can
have
you
any
hear me
programs? Oh, I'm sorry.
I think you might can hear me now.
Yes, we can, Bob.
We have exhausted our time. We promised everybody we'd keep this short, but I just want to thank both Commissioner Black and Ty Godfrey for their input.
All right, thank you, Bob. Ty, one last question. You know, what programs do you offer that are not being used by farmers today? Are there any that you find that are just going unused?
Well, a lot of our conservation programs, people always associate the conservation programs to trees, but it also includes grasses, waterways, filter strips that will align with what the commissioner was talking about as far as water conservation. A lot of our conservation programs, they're not just tree-based. So those are being underutilized in my opinion. Also, our farm soil self-loan program, a lot of people are interested, but when you start discussing with them the particulars on it, they get discouraged. But in the end, with the limited markets that we have for grain, it's a great program. And again, the terms are very reasonable. You cannot go to a private lending institution and get the terms and rates that we offer. And I see those two programs as two of the main programs that are underutilized in the state of Georgia. Great.
Well, Ty, thank you for your input today and update on the current FSA programs that are out there, as well as ones that farmers could utilize. And I would encourage them to reach out to you or their own local FSA office for more information on those. So on behalf of Holderman Real Estate and Need More Properties, we thank you for listening and watching today. I think we had a couple of really informative sessions. Really appreciate Ty's comments as well as Commissioner Black's. And we just wish everyone the best this 2021 crop season. And I encourage you all to be safe. Thank you all for listening in today.